Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're talking about that low hum of worry that sometimes just won't turn off.
Or even that sudden spike of panic that can feel like it comes out of nowhere.
Exactly. And if that sounds familiar, then this deep dive is definitely for you. We're going into the reality of anxiety, not as a big clinical diagnosis, but as an experience, a physiological thing that happens in everyday life.
That's right. And we've got some fascinating material that uses this one really powerful metaphor that anxiety doesn't shout at you,
It whispers.
it whispers. And our mission today is kind of twofold. First, we want to trace how those whispers can build up into something truly overwhelming.
Okay.
And second, we want to break down one simple, very practical technique that went viral for a reason.
The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method.
That's the one. It went viral because it actually works. It helps bring people back down to earth. We want to explain not just what happens, but why a trick that seems so simple can have such a huge physical effect on your nervous system.
All right. Let's get into it. Let's unpack that journey from the whisper to the overwhelming shout.
So this is where our case study begins, with the whispers.
Our starting point is a story about a 16-year-old student. We'll call him Alex. And from the outside, Alex was, well, he was fine.
Totally fine. Polite, friendly, doing okay in school. Not a star student, but not struggling either.
He was basically invisible in his struggle. But what this case study shows is that his struggle wasn't random. It was almost ritualistic. It started every single morning.
These were the initial whispers. The source material describes him waking up with this strange, heavy feeling in his chest. You know, we talk about butterflies when we're nervous.
Right, like before a big game or something. Excitement.
But this was different, darker. The description was that they felt like heavy, nervous ones beating their wings too fast.
That is such a specific and unsettling image. It's not anticipation, it's dread. It's this internal alarm going off with no obvious reason.
Exactly. And he'd try to reason with it. He'd tell himself, it's just school. You know, it's just the bus.
But the physical symptoms were already starting.
They were already taking hold. On the bus ride to school, that feeling would just get more intense. His hands would get cold. His breathing would get all shallow and short.
That's the body getting ready for a fight, right? But a fight that isn't actually happening.
That's it. The body is registering a threat, a serious one, no matter what your rational mind is telling you.
And this physical distress was then fueled by this internal mental loop. His mind wasn't just vaguely worried.
No, it was very specific. It was running a script of worst-case scenarios over and over.
What kind of things?
Oh, the classics. What if I fail the test? What if the teacher asks me a question and I don't know the answer? But the real core of it, the one that drove so much of the social fear was, what if everyone thinks I'm stupid?
That's the one. The fear of being exposed, of public judgment. That's what really cranks up the volume on the physical feelings, isn't it?
It's the ultimate amplifier. The whisper tells you that you're uniquely failing, that everyone else has it together. It takes a small worry and just inflates it until it feels enormous.
And that feedback loop between the racing thoughts and the racing heart, that's what leads to the breaking point.
It's a perfect storm. The mind confirms the body's alarm, and the body confirms the mind's worst fears.
So this cycle just kept going day after day until it finally peaked. The case study calls it Alex's worst day. It happened in English class on a totally normal Wednesday.
And just like that, the whispers became a scream. The physical escalation here is, it's terrifyingly intense.
What did he feel?
He suddenly felt like the room was closing in on him, like it was getting smaller. His heart started pounding just way too fast. His vision got a little blurry around the edges.
So his sympathetic nervous system is just in complete overdrive.
Total takeover. It's pure biological chaos. His body is screaming at him to flee, to run.
But he's stuck. He's sitting in a chair in the middle of a classroom. He's got this crushing urge to escape, but at the same time, he's just desperate not to draw any attention to himself.
And that's the agony of it, isn't it? The need to run versus the need to appear perfectly normal. It creates this internal pressure cooker.
He manages to ask to go to the bathroom. And as soon as he's out in the hallway, he feels his legs shaking.
Right. The physical strain is undeniable at that point. He gets to the bathroom, leans on the cold sink, and he's just hit with this profound sense of being utterly alone.
Yeah, and the thoughts come rushing back. Why am I like this? Other people don't feel this way.
Which is the great lie of anxiety, because so many people feel this way. But because no one talks about it, the isolation feels absolute.
So we've talked about the peak of the panic, but what really stood out to me was the aftermath, what the source calls the hidden marathon.
Yes, this is so important. After he managed to get himself together and to go back to class, he didn't feel relieved. He felt depleted, utterly exhausted.
The source says he felt like he had run a marathon without moving. So why is that? He was just sitting at his desk. Why would his body feel physically exhausted?
Because your body doesn't really know the difference between a psychological threat and, say, being chased by a tiger. When that panic response hits, your adrenal glands flood your system with cortisol and adrenaline.
The stress hormones.
The stress hormones.
Yeah.
Your heart rate, your blood pressure, your breathing, everything surges. Your body's activating all these large muscle groups, getting them ready for intense physical exertion.
Even if you don't actually move?
Even if you don't move an inch.
Yeah.
That whole process burns a massive amount of energy. So afterward, you're left with this legitimate biological fatigue. It's a burnout.
So if you, listening to this, have ever felt completely wiped out after a period of intense worry, it's not you being weak.
Not at all. It's a measurable physiological response. You literally ran a marathon inside your own body.
So Alex is exhausted. He feels completely alone. But that night, something changes.
The turning point.
He's just scrolling on his phone, probably just trying to numb out, and he finds a video, one of those short, viral clips with millions of views. It's a girl sharing a trick that she said saved me during my worst panic attacks.
And this is huge. For Alex, who's just asking himself, why am I like this? To see someone else, a total stranger, not only describe his experience, but offer a solution.
It's transformative.
It's the first proof that he isn't alone.
And the trick she shared was the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method.
Right. And the core principle here is so smart. Anxiety lives in the future, right? In the land of what if.
What if I fail? What if they laugh?
Exactly. This grounding method is an immediate cognitive interruption. It forces your brain to stop worrying about what might happen and focus really intensely on what is happening right now.
Okay, so let's walk through the exact steps because the progression through the senses is really the key here.
It is.
You start with your most dominant sense sight. First, you name 5 things you can see.
And this forces you to scan your environment, to actually process the specific, non-threatening things around you.
Then you move to touch. You find 4 things you can feel.
This is so good for bringing you back into your body. The texture of your jeans, the coldness of a metal chair, the smooth screen of your phone.
Next, hearing. You listen for 3 distinct things you can hear.
And this forces your brain to process external data instead of that internal noise, that internal script of worry. Maybe it's a clock ticking or traffic outside.
Then you go to the quieter senses. You identify 2 things you can smell.
Which often requires a bit more focus, a deliberate search.
And finally, you anchor it all with one final sense. Think of 1 thing you can taste.
Maybe it's the coffee you had an hour ago, or the mint from your gum. It's the final lock, bringing you completely into the present moment.
And what's amazing is how universal this is. The comments on that video were just filled with people saying this helped them on a plane, at work, in the middle of a test.
It works because it's based on human biology, which is the same no matter where you are.
Okay, so now we get to see it in action. The very next morning, on the bus, that same anxious feeling starts to creep in.
The ritual begins.
But this time is different. This time, Alex has a tool. He decides to actually try it.
And that's the moment of agency, isn't it?
Mm.
He's shifting from being a passive victim of the feeling to an active manager of it.
Okay, so let's run through what he actually did on the bus. For the 5 things he could see, he listed backpack, window, seat, shoes, sign.
Just simple factual observations. He's observing his reality, not his fear.
Then 4 things he could feel. The metal bar, his jacket, the seat, his phone.
Tangible, immediate sensations. They disrupt that internal feeling of dread.
3 things he could hear. People talking, engine noise, a distant siren.
He's actively filtering his environment, which is a task that requires focus. It's very hard to do that and maintain a full-blown panic spiral at the same time.
Then 2 smells, coffee and the smell of the rain. And finally, 1 taste, mint gum.
And the result was immediate. It was surprising.
His heart slowed down. His breathing got deeper, more normal. His mind stopped racing.
Now, the anxiety didn't just vanish. That's not the point. But the description is perfect. It became softer-like, reducing the volume of a very loud radio.
And that gave him something that panic always steals.
A sense of control.
A sense of control. He didn't stop the feeling, but he controlled his response to the feeling. Okay, so this brings us to the big question. Why does this work? Why does making a simple list interrupt something as powerful and biological as a panic attack?
That's the deep dive. It feels like a simple mental trick, but it's actually a neurobiological intervention.
Okay, break that down for us.
So panic lives in the limbic system, mostly in the amygdala. Think of it as the brain's alarm center. When it fires, it takes over. It hijacks your system and shuts down your higher level thinking.
The rational part of your brain goes offline.
It goes offline. The 5-4-3-2-1 technique works because it forces you to reactivate that rational part, the prefrontal cortex.
Ah, so the act of deliberately looking around, identifying an object, and naming it, that's a prefrontal cortex job.
Exactly. That's an executive function. And here's the critical part. The prefrontal cortex cannot be engaged in that kind of focused analytical task and be completely seized by a panic spiral at the same time. They are, in a way, mutually exclusive states.
So by forcing your PFC to work, you are physically, neurologically interrupting the circuit that's driving the panic.
You're sending a signal down to the amygdala that basically says, hey, stand down. The boss is up here. I'm looking around, and I can confirm there is no tiger in this room.
Wow. So it's not just a distraction, it's a system reboot.
That's a great way to put it. And that feeling of regaining control, of having a tool that works, is why this thing went viral. It's simple, it's free, and it's real.
It shifted the whole conversation from, you have to be strong and just push through it.
You need to understand yourself, notice your feelings, and have tools to stay grounded when things get too heavy. That message resonated with people everywhere.
That is such a powerful and honestly a reassuring message. So if you're listening right now and you ever find yourself in that cycle before an exam, before a big meeting, or just on a random Wednesday for no reason at all, remember Alex's story. Remember that your feelings are valid and you are definitely not the only one running that hidden marathon.
And keep this tool, the 5-4-3-2-1 method, in your mental toolkit. Look, it might not change your life overnight. It's not going to solve the root cause of all your stress.
But that's not the goal.
That's not the goal. The goal is just to help your brain slow down enough for you to catch your breath, to shift you out of that panic circuit and give you back a moment of control. And sometimes, really, that one simple act is more than enough.